Welcome everyone to this evening's Agenda Briefing Forum. This evening is not a decision-making forum, it is the briefing on the agenda for the Ordinary Council meeting which will be held next Tuesday, 25 March 2025. I'd like to remind everyone in the chambers to ensure that comments are respectful to the Council and all meeting attendees, including city officers and those in our public gallery. Please note that this meeting is being live streamed. I would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land in which we are meeting, the Whadjuk people of the Noongar Nation, and pay our respect to elders past, present, and emerging. Announcements, there are no announcements tonight. In attendance, the Mayor is on leave of absence, and Councillor Sutherland has provided an apology. All other councillors are present in the chamber this evening. Disclosure of interest. Are there any councillors who have an interest to disclose? Councillor Palmer.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Yes, my nature is impartial interest, and this is on 10.5.1.4. Mr. Gary Warner is giving a deputation not in support. I have known Gary in a business partnership, an ongoing normal friendship. Therefore, my interest is impartial. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Maleka.
Thank you. Mine's an impartial interest to item 10.4.1, place names. The creative producer and Noongar artist mentioned in the report is known to me through my work at AGWA.
Thank you. Councillor Sosowski.
I have three that I'd like to raise, please. My first one is in regards to item 10.2.1, the 2024-25 statutory mid-year budget review. The underground power program is mentioned in there. It's an impartial interest. Information from the department that I have is that I have an interest in common in this topic. My declaration may need to change in the future depending on the nature of the report. It's an impartial interest and I'll be staying in the room. In terms of item 10.2.2, financial report for the period ended 28 February 25, Watton Reserve is mentioned in this report. Morley Windmills Sports Club I'm a member of, and the Morley Windmills leases the facility at Watton Reserve, impartial interest staying in the room. And my final one is for 10.5.2.4, the quarterly performance report, corporate. Underground power program is mentioned in that report briefly. It's an impartial interest for the same reasons as I've mentioned previously. And I'll be staying in the room, and that is all. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Everson.
Yes, thank you. Declaration, it's an impartial, and I'll be staying in the room. It's for 10.2.2, the financial report for the period ending February. Watton Reserve is mentioned, and I am a member of the Morley Windmills Sports Club, which leases the sports facility at Watton Reserve. So, as I mentioned, impartial, staying in the room. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Councillor Sosowski.
Sorry, there was one more. It's also in regards to 10.5.2.4, the quarterly performance report corporate. The report talks about the Morley Station Precinct Structure Plan. My mother's house is on the border of the catchment of that structure plan. So again, just another impartial interest, and I'll be staying in the room.
Thank you. Councillor Palmer.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I have another one, which is 10.3.2. As one of the submissions was from the Bayswater Childcare Centre, of which I am the chairperson, so it'll be impartial. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other declarations, councillors? Thank you. So we will move now to the deputations part of the meeting. This evening, councillors, we have 3 in-person deputations. I will explain how the deputation process will work. Each person who is presenting a deputation will be invited to come forward to speak at the microphone for up to 5 minutes. As we get close to 5 minutes, I will let you know so that you can conclude your deputation. Once you have finished, councillors may have some questions for you. We will start with item 10.3.2, future use of 476 Guildford Road, Bayswater. The first deputation is from Mr. Sankaran. Yeah, if you can please come forward State your name and suburb.
Ramdas Sankaran, CEO of the Multicultural Services Center. Acting Mayor, all elected councillors, CEO, and officials of the City of Bayswater. Thank you very much for the opportunity to present today. And can I start with an apology for stuffing up my early morning email? I really shouldn't be waking up at that time of the morning. And it was a cut and paste effort, and I referred to Olive Tree House rather than 474 to 476 Bayswater, Guildford Road, Bayswater. Look, as indicated in my submission or my deputation letter, affordable office accommodation in the city of Bayswater is pretty close to rarer than hen's teeth. We've been trying for quite a while now and haven't been able to secure one. We have contractual obligations to the Department of Home Affairs to roll out our settlement services program for new and emerging migrants who've been in Australia for less than 5 years, and we are yet to find something that's suitable. I also wish to emphasize that the plans for the property include other activities. It's not just settlement services, but a whole range of other activities which are relevant to not just the called population, but to Indigenous as well as to the mainstream population. So it's a fairly wide scope, the plans that our ambitious plans envisage, and quite happy to expand on that. More importantly, it involves 3 agencies, not just our centre, but Isha Multicultural Women's Health Centre, as well as Youth Futures. Look, it is very difficult to actually estimate the number of people that could be covered by the plans that we have. For starters, the census data is so outdated. So it's very hard to actually put your finger on what the called population of the city of Bayswater actually is. The other factor that I think we need to take into account is the corridor that Guildford Road, all the way from Midland to virtually to the city. Obviously, in and around that corridor, there's a large number of high-density affordable accommodation. So we can expect, a significant number of people, who could end up using the services that we plan to offer there. Despite its age and condition, the property is very ideally suited for us from a public transport perspective. So we have taken into account everything that was mentioned in the tender document in terms of the plans, in terms of the particular condition of the building and what have you. But having considered all of that, we have proposed an estimated $25,000 worth of upgrades we want to do, and we've detailed that in our submission. So when the council considers the recommendation of the tender assessment panel, we would be grateful if it's possible for you guys to consider a rent that's less than what was stipulated in the stuff. We would be most grateful. If for any reason you're not able to do that, we're more than happy to pay the rent that is recommended, which is 40% of the market valuation. Look, from the feedback received, we understand the tender process was very competitive. So although our proposal does, as I just mentioned, involve us putting aside some money for upgrading the stuff, we consider ourselves fortunate that we are the recommended lessee. We look forward to the council accepting the recommendation on behalf of our board and staff. I thank you all in advance for the same. I will conclude by emphasizing that we will ensure the fulfillment of every single thing we have committed to in the tender document. Happy to answer any queries.
Thank you very much for that. I will first now check if councillors have any questions. Councillor Iveson.
Yeah. Thank you for your deputation, and I'm seeing the applications that MSC has put through for property within the city. So it's definitely a long time coming. My question for you is, there's tenancies that could have been available under the train station in Bayswater. Was that an option that was perhaps pursued in addition?
I wasn't aware of it. Look, I think this particular stuff, for the reason I just mentioned, in terms of the transport route, really, I can't think of a better location. And in terms of, the things we can do, and particularly in terms of things like community garden and social enterprises, we've got a number of social enterprises that are, currently available to us, and it does offer us opportunities for that. The activity room is ideally suited for that. So, yeah, I don't know enough of that other property you just mentioned, but I think this is a good one.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions, councillors? No, that's it. Thank you very much, Mr. Sankara.
Thanks a lot. Thank you very much.
So I will now call, still on the same item, I will call Bernie Durkin from the Neighbourhood Watch Asian Community Services. Please, if you can state your name and suburb, and you have 5 minutes.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. My name is Bernie Durkin. I'm the current chair of Neighbourhood Watch Australasia and also the chair of Neighbourhood Watch in Western Australia. I'm employed by the Western Australian Police Force in the Community Engagement Division. I'm here speaking on behalf of the Neighbourhood Watch Asian Community Services Group, who have expressed an interest in the property at 476 Guildford Road, Bayswater. Lisa Lee, the president of this group, is present with a number of her volunteers in the room. I'm very closely involved with this group and fully support them in my role with Western Australia Police and also with Neighbourhood Watch, both WA and Australasia. At all community events that this group coordinate, we ensure that we get a uniformed police presence in attendance as a public display for the support that WA Police have for this group. This group also work very closely with the Department of Home Affairs and are a source of intelligence for a number of areas that Home Affairs manage, including human trafficking, visa breaches and other illegal activities. The term fugitive may sound a bit dramatic, however this group often provides intelligence that culminates in the apprehension of people of particular interest to the Department of Home Affairs. Obviously this information is very confidential and does not pose any risk to this group or any asset owned by the City of Bayswater. Representatives from the Department of Home Affairs are usually in attendance at the community events that this group run. This organisation has been operating within the City of Bayswater for over 10 years and currently has a member base of approximately 5,000 people metropolitan-wide, with an estimated 500 living within the City of Bayswater. I've worked very closely with this group for the past 10 years and believe me, they are an asset to your local community. They have had several moves during their 10 years of existence and I'm hoping they will secure a more suitable location, hopefully 476 Guildford Road. They have had suitable accommodation previously, but they've had to pay commercial rates, which as a not-for-profit charity is very difficult to maintain. The organisation are far from a traditional neighbourhood watch group that I would normally manage, and they're a valuable support network for any Asian people living within Western Australia. They offer support to victims of domestic violence, victims of financial crime, for example, online scams, which are a major issue at the moment, senior abuse, which can often be financially motivated, tenancy disputes and neighbourly disputes, just to mention a few. Obviously, English is the second language for many of their members, and this can create many unique challenges that many of us do not have to face. This language barrier can make these people more susceptible to becoming victims of crime. As part of this group's membership base, they also have access to a lawyer who provides free legal advice to their members in need. Several large community events are coordinated annually, which is a mix of official speeches, presentations such as crime prevention, fishery or traffic laws, domestic violence prevention. Then the day culminates with a range of traditional entertainment, including singing, musical instruments, adult and child dances. The City of Bayswater elected members have been very strong supporters of these events over the lifetime of the organisation. As stated, this organisation is far from a traditional neighbourhood watch group, as they provide very broad support services to a large, vulnerable, multicultural group of people throughout our communities who welcome the support. On top of their support services, this group also coordinate numerous weekly social activities for Asian members of our community. Loneliness is a major community issue, and statistically, 26% of our community members live alone. Providing social activities to this vulnerable group in our community contributes to productive social networks and happier and healthier lifestyle, including improved mental health. The City of Bayswater have been for many years leaders in promoting community safety, and support of this application further supports this cause. Securing these premises would go a long way to supporting the future success of this very worthy and much needed organisation. I wish to thank you for the opportunity to speak on behalf of the Neighbourhood Watch Asian Community Services Group, and I hope that you look at their expression of interest favourably. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you very much. Councillors, anyone have any questions? Councillor Leder.
Can I just check, I'm not sure if you might be able to answer, or perhaps someone from the group, if the group was able to visit the building and see it? Yes? Okay.
I believe the President, Lisa Lee,
Okay.
they have visited
Great.
the premises, yes.
Thank you.
Any other questions, councillors? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
We're now moving to item 10.5.1.4, Planning Policy Review, Significant Tree Register for Private Land Policy and Associated Guidelines. We have a deputation in person from Mr. Warren. If you can please come forward and state your full name and suburb of residence.
Good evening, Acting Mayor, councillors, CEO and officers. I don't need notes because I know exactly what I want to try and get through.
So if you can just start with your name and suburb.
Gary Warren, I am from Ray White Carters in Bayswater. I live in Orange Grove these days. I still have several properties in Bayswater, none of which are affected by this particular policy. So I am not speaking with any sort of vested interest. From what I understand, the existing tree policy is that if somebody wants to register their tree in the backyard, they can do so. The difference between, for example, a home in Toowong Street that's on a 728 square metre duplex block that is a duplex property able to be developed behind, compared to one that has a significant tree registered and is, say it's a large tree and is unable to be developed, is probably around about $200,000 currently. The average price for a modest home in this area is probably around 900 or $1 million. I have been a real estate agent in this area since 1981. I'm actually ran into the car park Mr. Mick Lay from Lay2, who has the same concerns that I do. Should this policy get legs, I can see an absolute legal nightmare. If you imagine, and let's not take now, let's say in 10 years' time, Bayswater still has an elderly population in it. Say that one of the owners passes away and it's given to the public trustee or eventually sold by an agent from out of the area who has no idea that there is a significant tree policy concerned. He'll search the title. He'll pull up whatever there is on the title concerned to see if there is something which would be a detriment to it being developed. Now, whilst I understand, I watched the same TV programs or the same TV news that said that Cottesloe, with its 1,300 and 1,400 square metre lots, has a lower temperature than Butler, with its where they put a bulldozer through the lot and just developed the hell out of it. I love Bayswater. It's been my passion for many years. But you have to realise it is 6 kilometres from the city, and we have the one of the most important train stations concerned. Now, if, for example, the other thing is, I believe that, from what I understand, a next door neighbour can register a next door neighbour's tree. Well, not every next door neighbour that I've ever come across is always in good spirits with their neighbour. Let's say The person concerned retires, gets their super and goes on a 6 or 12-month trip. I believe that what was proposed was something along the lines of, well, we'll write to the person concerned. Well, what if you don't get an answer? Is that party still affected? It's just an absolute legal nightmare that, especially when you get an agent from out of the area who has no idea, searches the title, checks the zoning, which they don't have to call City of Bayswater to do. They can do online through Intramaps, etc. And they say, well, we've got a duplex block. Wham, it's sold. Somebody goes to put in a development application, lawsuits start to fly. It is, whilst I believe that the intention was good, the actual application in its current form would be a significant detriment to anybody selling their home, and to have a situation where somebody who was appointed to sell the home that is not the homeowner, be it through an estate or whatever, etc., 10, 20 years down the track, has no idea of what they're selling because it's not registered on the title. It is just going to be a legal nightmare. I think also, especially when you've got elderly people that have lived here for, say, 50 years, they need these days a large sum to get into a home, and all of a sudden they're $200,000 less because they've hadn't realised by signing this that they were signing a percentage of their property away. I think it needs to be revised. I don't see what is wrong with the current policy, that if you want it, you can do it, which is my understanding. Perhaps it's wrong. But I certainly would not suggest moving ahead with this policy in its current form.
Thank you very much. I will go to councillors and check if there are any questions. Councillor Johnson.
Thank you, Gary, for your deputation. Are you aware the policy does not say the neighbour can register a property on their neighbour's, a tree on their neighbour's property?
I thought that I read that they could nominate, and then it was up to the owner whether they agreed.
If they can't register on their neighbour's property, that's correct.
Either way, you've still got a situation where, say, the owner has moved on or died, and somebody is selling it that has no idea of this policy. This isn't Cottesloe. We're 6 k's from the city. Bayswater will change. Morley will change. It's already doing so. I think to disrespect that there is we should go backwards in time, and that there shouldn't be a situation where property can be developed according to the gazetted scheme that this council has put up and said this is what is good for the area after considerable suggestion, which is also approved by the WAPC. To put a significant deficit like this is a major mistake.
Are there any questions? Councillor Leder.
I'm just wondering why you think people would not know about it before the property is sold, because we've been given the advice that it would be disclosable.
How?
Perhaps I'll ask a question of the city later to explain that particular element if you want to stick around.
So we will do that.
Well, I don't see how they can, unless it's on the title.
So what I suggest, Councillor Leder, this is a question you can ask the officers in a few minutes, and then we can clarify it
can I give you
Mr. Ward
an answer to that? In answer to that, can I give you the standard operating procedure of a real estate agent? When they list a property, they do a title search. Not all will go to the council. Some will go to Intramaps, check the zoning, advertise it for what it is. And if it turns out that there is a significant tree on the property, well, then, hello, here it comes.
Any other questions, councillors? Councillor Evson.
Yes, thank you for your deputation, Gary. Following on a similar vein, I suppose, if there was mention of a significant tree on the title of the property, what's the likelihood that a registered tree would be made known to the new buyer prior to settlement date?
Absolutely should be. Any agent that does not attach a copy of the title or at least disclose and give a copy of the title to a purchaser is an idiot and deserves what he gets.
I guess, yeah. Thanks for that thought. I suppose what I was asking is is there any laws or regulations that require that the agent discloses all of that information prior
Absolutely.
to?
Yeah, absolutely. It's in our code of conduct.
Okay, cool. Thank you. Just wanted to go to incentives now because this has always been an interesting one. Incentives, because you talked about property values being impinged and things like that. So the incentive section talks about site coverage of 5%. Would be where existing trees are on, significant trees are on the property, a variation of 5% would be considered, and up to 10% for 2 or more trees. Would that incentivise, does that solve the problem, I suppose, of having a significant tree that takes up space and that?
Depends on the zoning.
Yep.
You know, if you've got R25, that's a hell of a lot different to R40. Yep. And it is possible to develop, a duplex, 2 homes on an R40, 500 odd square metre site, certainly. So as far as incentives are concerned, it's, it depends on the tree, doesn't it, And how am I, or any agent, going to know what's significant or not in size? I think I noted in there were certain sizes that it's automatically perhaps not significant as some other term, but, we're not botanists. Our job is to sell the property. And like I said, my concern is not so much for the local agents, because we'll know. My concern is for the people that are affected, because in my view, if you own a property, it's your property. It should not be subject to anything else than is in planning law. I also question the fact that when so much goes into a structure plan or a revisitation of the overall plan for the area, why all of a sudden do we have to then go, okay, we're not actually going to allow that because there's some trees that are there. Now, sure, like I said, I fully understand. You're not going to, when you've got, most lots here are 600 to 700 square metres, you're not going to achieve Cottesloe, where you've got 1,300 and it's right next to the beach. It's not going to affect the temperature. We're in an inner city area, and I think the sooner the council gets a grip on that, the better. Sorry, that's just my view.
Probably just one more question on incentives, because one of the dot point 5 talks about applying for a variation to building height of up to, and it used to be 3 metres, and now it's actually 2 metres. Does that have any impact? Yeah. I'm just interested as to what your thoughts are as an agent on that variation being reduced down to 2.
I didn't see that. Sorry. So what's 2 metres? You're talking about building another home that's only 2 metres. I mean,
additional
standard
height.
ceiling heights is, you're saying the ceiling height.
Yeah, additional height on the second storey. So a building height of up to 2 metres.
2 metres doesn't do anything. If you remember 9 to 11 King William Street, their first, which I think was, forget the exact structure plan concerned, but they had up to 5 stories. They got away with 7 because they did use special slabs. Then they came back with this horrible block of flats, which I actually objected to every councillor in this forum, not wanting to see Maylands, in the 1970s Maylands reproduced in Bayswater. I don't see how you can do something with 2 metres. I think it's, no, but I haven't read that, so I can't comment more.
Thank you.
Any other questions, councillors? I have a few questions, Mr. Vaughan. First of all, thank you for coming here, and
My pleasure.
we appreciate it. So I just wanted to clarify, as you know, and I think it was indicated by one of the questions here, that this is a voluntary register by private owners. So I'm trying to understand, so you are against having a voluntary register where property owners decide whether they want to register trees? Or
Listen, if a particular owner wants to register their property with a tree, it must be done on the title. It simply must, because otherwise it will become illegal.
So you're aware that this is what the policy currently specifies, that the property owner decides whether to register the tree or not?
I understood that anyone could register a tree, and I also understood that it was automatically registered if it was a certain size or width or something like that.
So I will, later on in the question time, I will clarify it for you. So if you'll stay, you can hear the officers clarify this situation.
Can you clarify for me whether it's, my second part of that question, whether it's a certain size or width, it's automatically?
We'll do that, yes. Well, I will
Because
do that
if
later
that's the case, it's just as bad.
Yes. You mentioned about private properties and the fact that private owners should make the full decisions on private property. I noted that point.
Within the law?
In the law. Do you find any difference between heritage protection under the current laws that we have and tree protection?
I commend City of Bayswater on their heritage protection program. Murray Street in Bayswater is a classic example. And the last thing I want to see is the essence of Bayswater disappear. But I think you've got that covered already. My own office is a Class 3, I believe, from memory. And, you know, there are certain restrictions as to what can be done and can't be done because it's heritage protected. I have no problem at all. I used to be the chairman of the Bayswater Historical Society, so I have no problem in seeing our heritage protected at all. But, you know, this is trees.
So I just want to understand that some protections on private property are agreeable to you, but
I'm
some
talking
not.
about heritage.
Heritage is fine, others are not, might not. Okay, I just wanted to... Okay, thank you. Do you support any protections on trees on private property?
No.
No.
Because it's not always the same owner that puts it on that ends up selling the property. For example, say it goes to the public trustee. The person dies. They appoint an agent, as they often do from out of the area, whoever's cheapest. And it's sold, and all of a sudden the buyer comes to council with a set of plans that they think, well, this works in another shire, this works here, I'll just use the same set of plans here. It's just, you know, like I said, it's. I think it's whilst it's noble in its intention, I think that it's certainly not good. Not good at all for the...
I'm curious, Mr. Wong, are you aware that the vast majority of tree loss in the city of Bayswater is on private property?
Well, I've seen quite a bit of tree loss on council verges. If you take the situation on Coode Street...
So the information is in the report. I just wanted to know if you're aware of that, that the massive loss by far is on private property.
I would expect that. I would expect that. Let's face it. You're situated with a lot of old housing on developable blocks. Now, there's not enough, excluding the town centre, which has a 10-storey height limit, etc. There's not a lot of property that is not developable. Probably at least half. So we're 6 k's from the city. We have a population explosion. The rents are through the roof. The resale prices are through the roof because we have this huge demand, not enough supply. And you know, the bottom line is that to restrict an inner city area, and Morley's 10 k's from the city, to restrict an inner city area when we're trying to find housing, I think it's absolutely the wrong move, as I've already stated.
Thank you. My final question. So you were just talking about restrictions, right, of developments in inner cities. Are you aware that Western Australia is one of the only states in the country that do not have any protections of trees on private property? And how do you find the limitations on private properties? Do you find they have slow developments because of those rules? So we are, we are the state, one of the only states.
I don't understand your question, sorry.
So we are the only state that does not have any protections of trees on private properties. So I'm curious, as a real estate agent with knowledge, Do you find other states, eastern states, are
I don't
slow
sell in
in
other states. I have
development?
no idea what happens in Sydney or Melbourne. I haven't sold over there.
Okay.
So I have no comparison there. All I can tell you is that Perth, because, well, WA has the highest level of employment in Australia. We are bringing people in from overseas. We have, well, these days at Homes Open, when you used to see 6 or 7, you're seeing 25, 30, 40 people, parties, so double that, looking for a house. It becomes a bidding war. And part of the reason is because we don't have the housing here already. And all this will do is help stifle that situation further.
I really appreciate your responses, and I'm sure everyone...
And as I said, I have no vested interest. I do not own a lot that is subdividable. I am just pointing out that I don't believe that this is a way to achieve what you're trying to achieve.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you.
My pleasure.
So we are now, councillors, we have received 3 written deputations tonight, also in relation to this item, significant tree register. The first is from Michael Manganaro from Noranda, and the second is from Wendy Garston from Mayerland. Both are in opposition to the officer's recommendation. The third written deputation for this item is from Greg Moxham from Mayerland, who is in support of the recommendation. So it's the policy, it's the committee's recommendation, yeah. Those written deputations have been provided to councillors and are available on the city's website, and I will take those as read. Councillors, we are now moving to the questions on agenda reports part of the meeting. We will start with questions on items that were subject of deputations. We will start with item 10.3.2, future use of 476 Guildford Road, Bayswater. Councillor Leder, do you have a question already? We can start with you.
Yeah, I actually wanted to know what the market rent for the property was, because one of the tenderers, it's fixed to that. I'm not sure if that's something that it's okay to say in public. If so, I'd be happy to hear it. If not, perhaps we could be emailed that information.
We'll go to the CEO.
I don't have that information at hand. I'm just looking at officers and I'm getting a head shake, so we wouldn't have that information, but we can obtain that and forward it out for councillors in preparation for the OCM.
Any other questions, councillors, on item 10.3.2? No. We will move to item 10.5.1.4, Planning Policy Review, Significant Tree Register for Private Land Policy and Associated Guidelines. Any questions, councillors? Councillor Leder.
Just following on from that deputation, I wanted to understand from the city whether a significant tree that was placed on the register, whether that would be listed on the title or not.
I will go to the director. Yep.
I
CEO.
was just going to say, we've got Tim here that may be able to answer the questions, or if not, Bianca, do you know?
No, that's my team.
Who's manager? Please.
Thank you. To answer your question, no, it wouldn't be placed on the title. It would be published on the city's website, and stage 3 of the assessment process in the guidelines states that it'll be placed on the city's GIS system.
Councillor Leder, yeah. A follow-up question? So who is... Oh, I think it's yours, actually. Sorry, but you need to turn it off and...
So is there any point in the process of a sale at which somebody would know that that was on the property, that there was a significant tree listed?
Yeah, through the chair. Yes, so obviously looking at the city's intramaps, it would be registered against that property within the city's GIS system. We are also including it in our notice of information relating to land that's provided to settlement agents when the property is being settled on.
Any other questions, Councillor Leder, or any other councillor? Councillor Ivson.
Yeah, thank you. just interested in the incentives. I'm trying to get my head around, and I mentioned to the deputy, a 5% coverage variation. What does that look like in regards to the space that the significant tree would take up versus the extra land that you can essentially gain by getting it, or recoup by having it on the STR?
Sorry, Councillor, yes.
Through the chair, it would depend on the zoning. So the R coding the property sets out what the site coverage requirements are. So it would be allowing a 5% variation to that requirement, depending on the zoning of the property.
Thank you. So we could probably, if we would go through some R codes, we could probably get some indicative space sizes. Is that correct? Maybe. Okay, thank you. And the other one, the height variation, there was a reduction from 3 metres to 2 metres. I'm just trying to understand, what does that mean in real terms? Can you build an extra storey with 2 metres? Is that allowable?
Through the chair, no, I think you'd struggle to get a full extra storey. You could potentially build within the roof space. Depends on, again, the zoning of the property and whether you're limited by the R codes, whether you're guided by a structure plan. The reason for the reduction from 3 metres to 2 metres was because that's the limit of officer delegation. So that's the limit of what can be approved by officers. That doesn't necessarily limit what can be approved by council, should something be presented to council.
Thank you. I have a few questions, 2 questions, just to clarify, following the deputy's comments. Just to clarify, does under the policy, the revised policy and guidelines, does any person can register a significant tree?
Through the chair, no, that's been changed. So the scheme provision that guides this policy is clear that the nomination must be provided by the landowner. So we've taken that to mean that consent of the landowner is required before any assessment will be undertaken by the city.
Okay, but specifically not nomination, even registration. Can a significant tree be registered on a private property without the consent of the private owner?
No.
No, thank you. Can the neighbour register a tree on someone else's private property?
Not without the consent of the landowner.
Okay. Thank you. Sorry, another follow-up question, I promise. Any relation to the size of the lot? I think it was a question, different sizes. The size of a tree, the size of the lot, any size relevant to the registration?
Through the chair, no, there's not. I believe there might have been some confusion about the 2 separate tree policies that were advertised together late last year. There are optional categories related to the assessment, one of which in the significant tree policy is related to size, but there are others which are related to social or cultural significance or species or ecological value.
Thank you. Any other questions, councillors? No, thank you very much.
Deputy Mayor, sorry, through the chair.
Yes.
There was a question that was raised by Councillor Eveson regarding the plot ratio and site coverage. Would you like me to provide the answer now?
Please.
Would that be more helpful? So in terms of the incentives, the best way to describe what the incentive relates to is that if we are saying someone can have 5% variation to site coverage or open space or plot ratio, it means they can build something. So if the requirement is 50%, they can build on 55% of that lot. So it enables the building to be 5% bigger than what the requirements allow for, regardless of what the zoning is.
Thank you. Do you have okay. So do you have a follow-up question, Councillor? Yeah.
Yeah, I guess it's what I'm trying to ascertain, and I know it's difficult because planning is quite a complex art. I'm trying to understand what's the root zone in the space that the tree would take place, and are we duly compensating for that loss across the site to enable someone to then build a property? So the incentive is trying to register the tree. I'm trying to understand, would the person that does the development then be able to get that space back in the development and essentially recoup the costs of having that tree, which they're losing?
Through the chair, that's a difficult question insofar as every tree has a different root zone. So it may be equivalent in some circumstances, but I would say in most circumstances it's probably less, that 5%, than what the root zone would be on that site.
Any final questions, councillors? No, thank you very much. Okay, councillors, we are now moving to the other items, and I will check if there are any questions on any of the other items. What I will do, I will go first to the items where we already know that some councillors indicated questions. And I will start with item 10.4.1, place names. Councillor Lede, you had the question.
Yes, thank you. I will also just declare an impartial interest in this item. I forgot earlier, but I also know the artist outside of my work on council. My question is about Malgamungup in particular, which has had some dual naming for some time, and at some time in the past, the city had explored the Landgate process around dual naming, and I just wondered where that process got to.
I will go to the director.
Thank you, through the chair. That must have occurred before my time here at the city, so I'll have to go back and review. However, this process is not informing a Landgate process at this stage. That will be something that council will consider in the future.
Any other questions on this item? No. I will go now to item 10.5.1.5, new policy election signs. Councillor Lede, you indicated that you have a question.
That's okay. I have asked and answered my question
Okay, so it's been
already.
resolved. Thank you. I will now go back to item 10.2.1, the statutory media budget review. I have a question on this to the city. On page 32 of our agenda, the online agenda, it refers to Mills Avenue Pocket Park development, which is part of Metronet, and it mentions decrease of $680,000 as state government is no longer providing funding to deliver the project. Can we get some more information around this? What happened to the money? Was that money promised to us and now it's taken by the state government, and why? I will go to the director. Thank you.
Yeah, through the chair, we'll take that one on notice and provide information before the council meeting.
Thank you. Any questions on this item, councillors? No. Are there any other items that councillors would like to ask questions on? Yes, we'll start with you. Which item, Councillor Osasowski?
Thank you. It's for item 10.5.1.6, the new policy, the mayoral vehicle policy.
Please.
Thank you. I've got a series of questions. My first one, what's the current situation regarding the city's fleet of cars that staff can use? So how many cars do we have? How are they booked? How long does someone have to wait for a car?
Before we go to the city, if I can, perhaps I should clarify to those who are here that we already ask any questions on the items subject to deputations, and the item will be discussed next week on Tuesday. But you're more than welcome to actually stay here, just in case you were not sure about the process. Yep. But feel free to stay. Yes, please. Are you going to answer? Yeah, I will go to the Manager of Governance.
Through the presiding member, the city has a council fleet policy which sets out the requirements for vehicles that the city owns. It sets out criteria around safety standards, environmental standards, being fit for purpose, how easily the vehicle can be serviced. So we have a policy that sets that out. All city staff that are provided with vehicles, the vehicle has to follow that policy. I'm not sure of the number of vehicles that the city has, but I can take that question on notice unless the director is able to answer it.
Yep.
Through the chair, we'll have to take that on notice. We've got the information. There's a fair bit of information there. We can summarise something.
The CEO would like to add something.
Please, thank you.
Just through you, Acting Mayor, just a point of clarification. Councillor, are you seeking vehicles that are owned by the city or vehicles that are related to staff contracts of employment or ones that are related to commuter use? Because we have a range of different vehicle fleet and allowance arrangements with a whole raft of number of staff. So just want to get some clarification around that so that we're not providing the wrong information.
Sure, thank you. So if a staff member needed to go to a meeting, do an errand, whatever they need to do, is there a car they can just grab and take and go?
So through you, Acting Mayor, we have a number of vehicles that staff can have access to. Two specifically are electric vehicles which are located in the Undercroft area, and there is a booking system for those vehicles. But all of the vehicles that are associated with staff commuting purposes and even private use purposes are available to staff to use to go to meetings as well.
And with that booking system, would a staff member have to book that car like days in advance, weeks in advance, months in advance to be able to use a car, or is something usually available pretty much straight away?
Oh, it just depends on the time of the year, Councillor. I mean, there is vehicles ordinarily available, but there is a booking system that they can go in and do. But I wouldn't know how many times staff haven't been able to actually get a vehicle. That would be something that if you required that information, we'd have to do a bit of a poll around the office and find that out.
In the report, the report mentions the running costs of the car. If we were to get one between 14,000 a year to 27,000 per year, those running costs are obviously different dependent on the type of vehicle that the city has. So are you able to explain to me what types of classes the city has then in that 14 to 27,000 range? Like petrol, gas, etc., whatever we've got.
I will go to the manager.
Through the presiding member, so the city has a number of different types of vehicles. So we have electric vehicles, we also have hybrid vehicles and petrol vehicles. The costs, the annual costs of running the vehicle are calculated based on the capital cost, which is the cost of the difference between what the city buys the car for and what the city anticipates it will ultimately sell the car for, split over a period of time, and then the operating costs for the vehicle. So that's things like the servicing costs, the fuel costs, the insurance costs, the licensing costs, and I guess importantly the fringe benefit tax costs. So the total annual operating cost of a vehicle is different depending on the type of vehicle that we're talking about, and those costs are estimated and monitored over the lifetime of the vehicle, and that's how we come up with that modelling to estimate the total annual cost of the vehicle.
In terms of the current situation with reimbursements, what types of reimbursements can elected members and the Mayor currently be reimbursed for in terms of their own travel, in terms of using their own vehicle or other modes of transport? So, yeah, what types of things can they get reimbursed for at the moment?
So under the Act and also under the Council's elected member entitlements policy, elected members are entitled to claim vehicle expenses for travel to and from council meetings, to and from committee meetings, and to and from compulsory training that elected members are required to undertake as part of their role. So you can put in vehicle mileage claims for the use of your own personal vehicle. If you are attending other civic or council events, for example, council briefings, agenda briefing forums, civic citizenship ceremonies, for example, elected members are also able under the elected member entitlements policy to put in mileage reimbursement claims under that policy and have them reimbursed. Other travel expenses are also able to be claimed if they relate to your role or function on council. So, for example, if you needed to get a taxi or an Uber to one of the things that I've just mentioned, you could also claim that under the policy.
Does that policy restrict the type of transport that you can use? So if I wanted to go and get a helicopter, which I wouldn't, but I'm just saying, does it restrict the type of transport use?
Through the presiding member.
You can take it to notice.
That one probably.
I don't, the policy doesn't exactly specify that, but what the policy does say is that your reimbursement will be based on vehicle mileage that's set out in the Salaries and Allowances Tribunal. So I think that helicopters would probably be out on that one.
I'm just trying to kind of understand then if this is capped in any way. So if you chose to use public transport versus using an Uber to get around versus using a taxi versus using a helicopter, there will be different reimbursements that the city will be reimbursing. So is there a cap on reimbursements for elected members and the mayor?
Through the presiding member, no, there is no cap as long as the travel relates to your functions and duties and your performance of them as an elected member.
Okay, thank you. What I'm trying to weigh up is the value, I suppose, whether it's actually better off for us to have a mayoral car or not have a mayoral car. And I'd be interested to see some information weighing up. The city was talking about, the manager was talking about environmental considerations, safety considerations. I think there's a management practice around what you look at. I also feel as though we should be looking at something very, very modest, though, because I don't like seeing in the report about an executive level car at $75,000. So I'm trying to weigh up modesty with need, with the money situation as well, and where we might be better off. So I'm just wondering, is the city able to provide for me perhaps, and to all councillors, a list of some vehicles in those different categories where it outlines those costs that you spoke about, the total cost, the annual cost, the running costs, so that I can get a better understanding of where a more suitable I just want to get a better understanding of the situation of the cars, please.
Yeah, Manager.
Through the presiding member, yes, we can put together a list of that. The city purchases its vehicles using the state common use agreement. So there is, a list of vehicles that we can have a look at the prices of different vehicles and whether or not they fall within the city's vehicle policy.
And just while I remember too, I found one other item here that I want to ask about. So if we did have a mayoral car, the mayor would be required to reimburse back to the city the private component of that car. Is that correct?
I want to go to the manager.
Through the presiding member, yes, the policy, the draft policy or specifies that any private use would need to be reimbursed to the city, and that would be calculated based on a logbook kept in accordance with the Australian Taxation Office requirements, and then it would be that a percentage would be extrapolated and require reimbursement by the mayor to the city. I think the policy says on a quarterly basis.
I don't need to ask any more questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, councillors. I have a follow-up question following one of the questions that Councillor Sosowski asked about the caps. Does the city, and I know the answer, I just want for the record, does the city check any claim for travel reimbursement coming from any elected members?
Yeah, through the presiding member. So what the city does when it receives a claim for reimbursement from an elected member, we look at the travel that has been claimed, we look at where the travel is to and from, we use Google Maps to check whether the kilometres being claimed align with the description of the travel, and we also check against the council's calendar to see whether or not that was an event that related to council work.
Thank you. Any other questions about this item? Councillor Palmer.
Just asking a quick question on the pool of cars. So it's a general question really regarding the pool of cars. If, as councillors, we go to a seminar and officers go as well, do they invite councillors to get into the same car to be practical, or do they all go in separate cars?
We'll go to the CEO.
Yeah, think through you, Acting Mayor, I think that's a practice that I've seen occur, and it's a practice that we would endorse and support as well. So if councillors were going to the same seminars and it was practical to either meet here and go together, or for even an officer to pick you up on the way, if it wasn't out of the way and not time consuming, then yes, that would be something that we would do and we would support it as well.
Thank you.
Any other questions, councillors?
Yeah.
Yes, another one.
So just going on to, from Councillor Ostrzowski's questions. So we've got a capital outlay for a city vehicle at an executive standard up to 75,000 Ks. Is that what we're looking at in this item?
I will go to the Manager for Governance.
Through the presiding member, at the moment what the policy says is that the mayor would be provided with a car up to an executive standard, so that the cost of that vehicle could be anywhere up to 75,000.
Thank you.
I'll check again. Are there any other questions? No. Do you have any other items that you're interested in? Okay, which one will start? Which one? No questions. Okay. Any other items that councillors would like to pull to ask questions on? Okay. If there is nothing else, I will close the agenda briefing forum at 8:01. Thank you very much, everyone.